now, right now. Right 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 now, right now. Oh, I got a real good feeling.
We try to bring you high-quality educational and informational content every single day. Why do you think the price is having such an anemic time? The news story of the hour. Jump onto the chart. Is this the beginning of a massive financial unraveling? We got to add a little addendum to the show map today. So we start here on the daily. Now, we've been looking at the RSI on Bitcoin's daily chart for the last several days. Well, what's happening? It's been increasing over the last 50 years since the government has been bigger. Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and welcome back to Coffee and Crypto Live. This is your weekdaily morning show where we bring you the latest and everything Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about a major trend that is on the 200, that is on the weekly chart, is the 200 weekly exponential moving average. We're going to be talking about how this is a critical level of support that Bitcoin absolutely must hold. And if Bitcoin does hold this through these trials and tribulations that Bitcoin has gone through over the last 7 days and over the next 7, then Bitcoin will have built a very strong zone and level of support right around $25,000, from which Bitcoin can then build a bigger rally. We're going to be talking about why this level is one of the most important levels in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency today. All right, let's go ahead and read some chat. Really appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. Just got started, already over 100 people watching. Thank you guys so very much. We've got RC Moore in chat, said hello. Good to see you, RC Moore. We've got Queen, Sean O'Brien, William Dietitian. Queen said Bedrock present. Good to see you, Queen. Crypto Mini Bike said good morning, everyone. Rick4962 in chat. Alex Naibo, Mario De Leon, Ahmed Tahir. We have a great community, by the way, guys. I can't pronounce all of your names. I'm sorry. Ahmed Tahir? I'm not sure. I said right now. Boom. Thank you guys so very much for tuning in. We've got such a great community. I'm so excited to be here with you guys today. Honestly, guys, coming on the stream here is one of my favorite things to do. You know, when I got started on cryptocurrency YouTube, I remember making my very first video and thinking, man, I am so like skittish. I'm so kind of like scared. Nobody's going to watch this. And then, of course, you know, we got 3 views. The first video was I talked about why Bitcoin was going to end up more than likely having a very difficult time actually continuing on with the bull market because it hadn't had a proper correction. Sure enough, a month later, the all-time high of $20,000 was hit and Bitcoin went into a bear market. And I remember uploading that video and thinking, man, if this just gets like 5 views, I'm going to be so just over the moon. I'm going to be so shocked. And then I remember when we went from 5 to 7 subscribers. I've told this story so many times before. I love telling you guys stories. I was sitting on a stone park bench outside the Barnes & Nobles at Santa Fe College in Gainesville, Florida, where I had my first job. I was working as a cash register. I was working as a cashier, and I remember the coat I was wearing. I was wearing this black like Walmart Dickies coat, and it's it's December something. We went from 5 subscribers the night before to 7 subscribers. It was the first time in my entire life. I'd had YouTube channels for 6-7 years. I've been making YouTube videos since like 2012, believe it or not, on other channels that you guys have never seen, and I remember going from that 5 mark to that 7 mark and thinking, wow, I just had 2 subscribers come in a day. That's crazy. Like, I just made 2 new friends in a day. That's a great day, right? 7 subscribers. That's like half of my English class, guys. Oh, my gosh. This is crazy. We're growing so fast. We're going to the moon. And I remember thinking, sure enough, we're going to hit 100,000 subscribers one day. And then sure enough, boom, we got the plaque right there. We managed to do it. And I'm just so incredibly grateful for you guys because I'm just the same guy with a little bit more TA knowledge than I was back then, but you guys have grown so much, and I'm so very thankful for everything that you guys, I almost said y'all, everything y'all have done for me. Got my southern accent coming out. Thank you guys so very much. Let's go ahead and make sure to jump on that like button. Hit the like button. Let's see if we can get to 50 likes here in just the next couple of minutes. We've got well over 100 people watching. We can definitely do it. Let's go ahead and jump onto CoinMarketCap, guys. As you know, there is quite a lot of conflict in the cryptocurrency space right now, with the SEC coming hard down on Binance and Coinbase, but Bitcoin has managed to fare quite well. In fact, Bitcoin is down only 1.5% over the last 24 hours. Let's go ahead and fix this really quickly. Bitcoin is down only 1.5%, about 2% over the last 24 hours, is sitting at $26,300. It is still up over 30% in the last 90 days and up nearly 60% year to date. Ethereum is up 30% over the last 90 days and up 53% year to date. Both of them are doing spectacularly well. Now, when you look at something like Cardano is actually only up 3% over the last 90 days. It's mostly been trading sideways, and over the last week, it's been moving to the downside. It's down about 10%. Makes sense because it was listed as a security in both of the complaints that the SEC filed against Binance and filed against Coinbase. If you want more of my opinion on what this actually means and what Gary Gensler is actually going for, make sure to go back and watch Wednesday's video. You can see that video on the channel. It went out yesterday. Needless to say, there is a culture war going on right now, and Bitcoin is on the receiving end of a major attack from the SEC that I do believe is politically motivated, especially since, and this is just a bit of a headline that we can read to you guys from just to kind of get started. In 2019, it is reported and alleged. It's reported, the unconfirmed sources kind of nonsense we've been dealing with for the last 10 years, that Gary Gensler had lunch with CZ, Changpeng Zhao, to try and be an advisor to Binance in 2019, and he was rejected. And it's pretty funny now that Binance is under fire from Gary Gensler. I wonder if there is some kind of, again, political or personal motivation there. There very well may be. I don't know. I don't know Gary Gensler's heart, but I can call a chicken if I see a chicken, and I think Gary Gensler might just be a chicken. I'm not calling him a chicken and that he's a coward. I'm saying that, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck and it talks like a duck and it's got a bill like a duck, then maybe the thing's just a freaking duck. All right, let's jump onto the chart. As you guys can see, Bitcoin has been performing pretty well ever since this news came in that Gary Gensler Securities and Exchange Commission was going to be coming after Bitcoin. We've been in this downtrend right here for quite some time. This downtrend is very important because this downtrend represents the healthy, and let me say that again, the healthy correction that Bitcoin has been undergoing for the last couple of weeks. This correction on Bitcoin has lasted well over a month now. We're almost to our 2-month mark. It's been 55 days, and Bitcoin's down between 15 and 18% depending on the day. That's a very, very healthy correction. In fact, I would not be at all concerned if Bitcoin corrected even faster than that. And considering this onslaught from Gary Gensler's Securities and Exchange Commission against the two biggest companies in the cryptocurrency space, it is actually very, very pleasing to see that Bitcoin is only down a couple of percentage points from where it began right before that attack was launched. Bitcoin is currently sitting at $26,400 and is just below the 100 daily exponential moving average. If you guys remember, we've been talking about these moving averages quite a lot. We've got the 50, the 100, and the 200. Those moving averages are very important because these moving averages basically kind of confine and bind in what the market is doing. They show us that the market right now is in a state where it is kind of bouncing around, trading sideways, and trying to decide on its next move. Bitcoin is really moving into almost an accumulation phase. It's almost as if this correction is mostly over, knock on wood, for now, and we're accumulating to see what the next movement is going to be. Are we going to break above the 50 daily exponential moving average and rally, or are we going to break below the 200 daily exponential moving average and crash? That would be the question of the hour. And that's the question that we're going to have to pay very close attention to over the next several weeks. One of the major factors that we want to consider right now is that Bitcoin finds itself in the accumulation phase, in the transitionary zone on its chart. And very quickly, I can show you that transitionary zone by just drawing a horizontal level, going to the coordinates 25,236, setting that right there, and then we can go on and set another level at 28,545. And then if we just draw a rectangle, you guys can see how I'm using TradingView here. We can draw a rectangle, use the exact same coordinates, 28,545, 25,236. Then we're going to have our transitionary zone drawn here, as you can see. This level, this zone, is dictated by this bottom that we set over here on June 22nd of 2021, nearly 2 years ago. It'll be 2 years ago, not too long from now. And it is set based on this resistance that we put into play about a year ago in August of 2022. This level was at 25,236. This level was at 28,545. That demarcates the transitionary zone. The last year or so, we've been below that zone. The year before that, we were above that zone. Now we're trying to decide where are we going to be for the next year. Again, 2 years ago, we were above that level. Over the last 12 months, more or less, we've been below that level. Are we going to spend the next year above or below? That's the question that is driving everything technically right now, and that's something I want you guys to keep in mind. That absolutely everything in cryptocurrency right now is being driven by this transitionary zone and whether or not Bitcoin is going to break above it or break below it, technically speaking. So what I mean to say by that is that the conversation about Bitcoin's technical analysis has to be centered around this zone. And the reason that it's so important is, as I said, because it is the zone that is going to dictate whether we're going into a bull market from here or whether or not we're going to go into a major correction, such as a drop like this, and then have to break through that zone again, moving on into late 2023, maybe on into 2024. The encouraging thing is that there is a ton of resistance below Bitcoin and a ton of, how should we say this? There is quite a lot of market sentiment support below Bitcoin where it sits at $26,300. What I mean by that is that the market sentiment turns extremely bullish every single time that Bitcoin comes down to this zone. Whenever Bitcoin comes down to the level of support on the 200 daily exponential moving average, there is a mass amount of support that comes into play from that level. On top of that, whenever Bitcoin comes down to, and this is the trend line that the moving average we're going to look at right now, whenever Bitcoin comes down to the 200 weekly exponential moving average, that is where we find quite a lot of support. Now, to kind of set the stage for what we're going to discuss here, we're on the Brave New Coin Liquid Index for Bitcoin. This is the longest running chart of Bitcoin that we have because this compiles price action from multiple different exchanges. We can look into the past here and see Bitcoin's track record. Generally speaking, during the accumulation phase and on into the beginning of a bull market, Bitcoin will use the 200 weekly exponential moving average, as you can see right here, as its level of support. We can also see how that level was used briefly here. And also, if we just come in here and turn on our 300 weekly exponential moving average, you can see that that is actually relatively important as well. Turning that on, just give it a chance to update here. Oh, TradingView is giving me trouble. Give me 1 second, guys. Doesn't want to let me open my technical indicator here. When we go into, just in case you ever have that happen on TradingView, if you try and open an indicator and you can't open it, just refresh the page. There we go. Turn this on and you will see the 300 weekly exponential moving average here. And it's glitching out again. Really apologize, guys. While I'm fixing this, I'll go ahead and explain what I'm trying to say. The 300 weekly exponential moving average and the 200 weekly exponential moving average averages are very important trend lines that help us to understand the support structure of the market. Every single market has a structure of support, and now we can see it here. It kind of outlines what the market is doing. You can see the 300 weekly exponential moving average became relevant here at the bottom in December of 2018, right here, where Bitcoin fell below the 200 weekly exponential moving average, went down to the 300. The 300 WEMA represents roughly 6 years of price action. The average, of course, it's a weighted moving average. It's an exponential moving average, so it's weighting more recent data more heavily than older data. But we fell down to that level here. During the pandemic, we dropped down to that level once again, and then we also dropped down to that level here. Now, if we just come in here, and hopefully I won't have to go through the same headache again to get this to work, but if we drag our 400 weekly exponential moving average on, we can see that that has started to become a key level of support on the market as well, because that's where we came down and bottomed out on the 13th of June, 2022. That is roughly an 8-year moving average. So a couple of things to pick apart from this. First thing to realize is that Bitcoin was using the 200 weekly moving average as support on its major market structure. Then we started using the 300 weekly. Now during this bear market, we've dropped down to the 400 weekly. We dropped below it, a little further below it briefly. That was because of the FTX collapse. In the same way we dropped during the previous bear market and bull market beginnings, we dropped below the 300 weekly EMA because of a black swan event. That's what happened here. We had a black swan event and we dropped below our market structure. But Bitcoin, disregarding the black swan event that was the FTX collapse, would have been finding support on the 400 WEMA. A couple of things to note from that. First and foremost, we can see there's a trend. Bitcoin used in its 2 bear markets ago accumulation phase, the 200 WEMA. It's roughly 4 years. In the bear market before this one, we used the 300. That was roughly 6 years. This time we used the 400 WEMA, which is roughly 8 years. That shows you that the growth curve of Bitcoin is starting to slow down and is asymptotically approaching some level. More than likely, it's not going to asymptotically approach some level. More than likely, it's going to asymptotically approach some absolute maximum uptrending level of resistance that Bitcoin will never break on the logarithm chart. What I mean is like a trend line such as, let's just say the trend line might be something like this. To be honest with you, the trend line could potentially already be defined. But you can see this trend here moving out into the 2030s would send Bitcoin at very most up to like $3 million. We'll probably end up having another trend line, something like this, in a similar way that we had a trend line something like this, and we had a trend line something like this. There will be this general uptrending curve that will eventually straighten out into an uptrending level. And we can see that every time we test a lower exponential moving average, we're also changing the inclination of these uptrending levels of resistance on the weekly chart, because we're going through this logarithmic growth curve. So the reason that that's significant is because it shows us that the growth of Bitcoin is slowing down, but it also shows us that these are critical levels of support. The 200 WEMA was very important during the previous bear market and bull market beginnings, because it was the level that Bitcoin broke through, and then we had to break through the 100 WEMA. We tested the 100, tested the 200, found it as support. Without the pandemic drop, we probably wouldn't have gone below the 200. We probably would have bounced at the 200 at most, and then we would have gone into our bull market. Similarly here, we're using the 200 weekly as support, and it shows us, it shows us two different levels that are very, very significant. You can see the 200 WEMA is sitting right here at $25,200, which lines up perfectly with the bottom of our transitionary zone at $25,236. This is the level of support that we are looking for right now. If I had to give you today's message in a nutshell, this is what I want to tell you. Bitcoin's critical support level is at $25,236. It is backed up by the 200 WEMA, and on the daily chart, it is also backed up by the 200 daily EMA, because right now it is sitting at exactly that level. And the bulls know this. So whenever Bitcoin drops down to the $25,236, there is an extreme amount of buy pressure for two reasons. One, we talked about a couple of days ago. We talked about bedrock. No matter how much the wind and the waves come and they beat against this house, the cryptocurrency house, we've already had all the topsoil, we've already had all the sand, we've already had all the gravel washed away by the hurricanes and the tornadoes and the earthquakes and everything, and now we're down to bedrock, and every house that was built on the topsoil has been washed away, but the skyscrapers that had their foundation, the homes that had their foundation drilled all the way down to bedrock, they are left standing, and they look like a bunch of mangrove trees hanging out here 100 feet above the new ground level, because they're just sitting on these stilts. You know, if you've ever looked at the foundations of a skyscraper, then you'll know what I'm talking about. And if any of you guys live in New York City, then you know exactly what I'm talking about, because you've seen this before. You got some pictures over here. You've got a building right here. You've got your topsoil, you've got your subsoil, and then the piles go all the way down to the bedrock. Some of them just go down to the topsoil or the subsoil, but if you really want a strong foundation, then you dig out the entire ground all the way down to the bedrock, and then you have a building that is really able to hold. You can see a pyramid foundation like this, but if you're trying to build an actual pile foundation such as this, then you would drill all the way down to the bedrock. And so that's what we're left with right now. We're left with an environment where the wind and the waves of FTX collapsing, of Luna collapsing, of the market being boring, so all the retail investors left. That market is left with a bunch of these skyscrapers that are standing strong. You're one of them if you're here right now, because there's a 99% chance that you're not new to crypto. You've probably been here for at least a year. And if you're not, welcome. You're the first person in a while, but welcome. And so we're left with all these skyscrapers that are drilled all the way down to bedrock, and they're not going to move because they are standing on a strong foundation. So that's the first reason why Bitcoin is bouncing really well. But the second reason why Bitcoin is bouncing really well and really easily is quite simply because these levels are all converging. For any of you guys who have watched through Club DeFi's Principles of Technical Analysis, then you will know that we talk about the convergence of support and resistance. And essentially what the convergence of support and resistance is very simply this principle that whenever you have multiple levels of support or resistance come together, so for example, you got the 200 daily EMA on top of the 200 weekly EMA on top of the 25,236 level, which in and of itself is sitting right next to 25K, which is a big even because it's a quarter of the way to 100,000, etc. All of those levels of support come together, and there's strength in numbers, and so there's that unity. And then that unity of support and resistance gives just this massive barrier that Bitcoin's unlikely to break. So the reason that I tell you in today's thumbnail and in today's title that Bitcoin must hold this moving average is quite simply, my hair doesn't want to cooperate with me this morning. I need another haircut. The reason that it doesn't, that this is so important is because if Bitcoin does drop below $25,236, then the drop to the next level is likely. That next level sits down here, funnily enough, at 21,786. Well, if you guys will remember to some of our technical analysis, there's a very important level at 21,808. If you guys remember, 21,808 represents the level of resistance that we set just before FTX collapsed. It doesn't show it as that on this chart, but 21,808 is a very important level indeed. And so if Bitcoin does fall all the way back down here, then it's going to have to contend with that level of right around $21,500. Let's just put it right here at 21.5. See, that's the level right here below that Bitcoin topped out at right before the FTX collapse took place. If we do see a drop below 25,236, then we're going to drop down more than likely to 21.5, and that is where that level is. It's sitting right where that trend line is on the weekly chart. The other thing to keep in mind is that if we do drop below 25,236, then the Bitcoin future CME gap becomes a question, because if we drop down to 21.5, then 21,000 and 20,400, that gap on the CME futures comes into light. So the bulls are defending this level very passionately and powerfully right now, around $25,236. But if they are not able to defend that level, then a drop down to 21.5 is very likely. That's where this prediction I made in this up next episode came in, that I made for you guys over on the YouTube channel relatively recently. I told you guys up next, Bitcoin I think has an 80% chance of rallying, 20% chance of dropping down to about $20,000 after we bottom out around 24 to 25K. Now, the thing to keep in mind is I also told you, like, this might be a little bit early. This may be coming a little bit later than we expected. And especially with this just bombshell of a Gary Gensler declared war on cryptocurrency, it makes absolute sense that it's going to take some more time for this to play out. At this point, Bitcoin, however, does have a lot more FUD behind it than it did a week ago. Right now, Bitcoin is contending with the fact that Gary Gensler's Securities and Exchange Commission is coming after Changpeng Zhao, Binance, and Coinbase. He's not actually coming after Brian Armstrong, but he's coming after those three, and those are three of the biggest names in cryptocurrency, one of them being a person, two of them being corporate companies. If Gary Gensler succeeds in any capacity in these lawsuits, then that is going to embolden Gary Gensler, and he's going to continue coming after cryptocurrencies, and he's going to continue trying to wrangle a hold over this industry, and very possibly he could do a lot of damage to the industry and force many companies to move overseas and to do business internationally and in environments that are more friendly towards cryptocurrency. This, unfortunately, this regulatory event that Gary Gensler has launched could very well drive innovation outside of the American market. That would obviously not be a good thing for cryptocurrency, so we don't want that to happen, but it is something that is very, very possible. All right, so what happens if Bitcoin drops below 25,236? Well, a drop down to $22,000 to $20,000 is absolutely in the cards, but would that be healthy? Would that be good? Would that be bad? What would that look like for Bitcoin? I want to start off by letting you know that a drop down to $21,000 would not be unheard of in a market like this. A drop down to 21.5 would be a 30% drop. We have seen drops much harsher, much faster in even very recent memory. This drop over here in late February moving into early March was a 22% drop. Back here during the middle of the bull market, Bitcoin dropped by 55%. During the pandemic drop, Bitcoin dropped by over 50% in a day. The drop that we witnessed here from our local top at 13.8 when we first went through this massive 350% rally, this drop led Bitcoin all the way to the downside by 73% as a result of the pandemic. And if you disregard that drop, we dropped by 53%. During the bull market of the last of 2016 and 2017, which is feeling so far away now, Bitcoin would regularly drop by over 40% on every single major correction. Bitcoin is still in a very similar boat today. Bitcoin could very easily go through a 30 to 40% correction, and it would not be the end of the world. A 25 to 40% correction would be perfectly acceptable and perfectly normal. Now, this rally has been a little bit smaller than many of those rallies. This rally is only a 100% rally. Bitcoin has only rallied 100% to the upside. So a drop of 40% would be unlikely. A drop of 40% from the local high of 31K would be unlikely, because that would be a drop down to $18,500. I don't think we're going to need to drop that low, although it is theoretically possible, and it would still potentially be a bullish thing for crypto in the long run, because we would still be having higher highs and higher lows. So even if we did drop down to 18.5, it would not be the end of the world. Don't worry too much about it. That being said, a drop down to $21,500 would be a 30% drop, and a drop down to $23,000 would be a 25% drop. Most corrections in the history of Bitcoin are at least 20 to 25% drops. To date, this drop from 31K has only been 18%. So don't be surprised if we drop harder from here. And if we do, it's not something that I want you to worry about. On top of that, let's also take a look here at this trend line because I think it's actually pretty important. The reason I say that is because before this trend line, we had set in motion a head and shoulders pattern that we talked about a month and a half ago on the cryptocurrency on the YouTube channel. You can see the price target for that would be sitting at $24,000, and $24,000 is a relatively understandable level because the level that we set as resistance at the beginning of February, and it also roughly corresponds with resistance that we set over here in July and August of 2022. In that regard, if we were to move through the price target of this head and shoulders pattern from the time that we broke bullish out of it, $24,000 would be likely. 24K would not represent a break so far below the 200 weekly exponential moving average that we would have to consider it just this absolute flash crash, and that we would have to consider that broken market structure in the same way that when we broke below the 300 right here, we just broke below it on a wick. But if we did drop down there to 24 and we bounced very strongly, that could signal a bottoming event. And from there, we could use that as a signal that Bitcoin is going to move to the upside from here. So all in all, and in short, Bitcoin very simply needs to wait. We are in a holding pattern right now, waiting to see another trend change. Right now, Bitcoin has been, for the last 2 to 3 weeks, in a massive sideways pattern. It is trading sideways aggressively. We are aggressively sideways, and so we need to be aggressively patient. We need to be extremely diligent in growing in our understanding of technical analysis and in making investments and in growing our personal finances and working on all of those things. But we also need to be patient and have endurance and understand that this market is going to take time to shake itself out. So if Bitcoin drops below 25,236, then a drop down to 24K on the bullish end, or I suppose the less bearish end, and a drop down to $21,500 on the more extreme end are in order. How would you take advantage of that, though? Well, it is very possible that you can make a trade here. It's very possible that you can make a short trade here. The tricky thing here is, guys, you typically want to make a long trade or a short trade, especially if it's more of a swing trade. And by a swing trade, I mean a trade that you're going to hold for, let's say, more than a week. You're typically going to want to make that kind of trade with quite a lot of confidence. I think breaking below these bottom moving averages here on the daily chart would give you that confidence. So it is possible, and potentially even a very good idea, that you can enter a short trade right here around $24,500. Just go ahead and show you this right here. You could enter a short trade right here around $24,500 with a stop loss probably right around $25,000. Just go ahead and show you that right here, $25,000, and then you could have that. You could have a take profit right around 21,750. I'll show you why. So this is a possible short trade that you could set up. Now, again, guys, this is just an idea. I in no way want you to just go and take this and run with it, because I'm not giving you investment advice. I'm just giving you my thought process for how I would set up these trades. I want you to make sure that you understand that trading is at your own risk. I'm not responsible for a trade that you make, and I also want to make sure that you guys realize that a trade that I give you as an idea right now, if you make it 7 days from now, there's 7 days more information that needs to be considered before you make that trade. So just be very careful when you're hearing me give you trade ideas. Don't just go and run with them. Apply the concepts that I'm talking about and learn, but don't just go and blindly apply them. So this example trade here, I think I may have, the stop's at 24.5. I put the stop too high, too low is what it was on top of it. The stop I was trying to say is 25,000. So that would give us a risk to reward ratio of 5.5. What you would probably want to do if you enter this trade is you probably want to exit at least a third of it right after you get to 24K. And the reason for that is that, and you might wonder, well, Jeb, wait a minute, why would I want to enter a trade if I'm just going to exit so much of it that quickly? The reason for that is because there is strong support at 24,000, and if you do end up holding at $24,000, then I want you to at least be able to lock in some gains so that when you have to trigger, hopefully what you would have as a trailing stop loss, then you would at least have some gains to cover the trading fee. So if Bitcoin were to drop below 24K, though, that's where you could double down on this investment, because there's not a lot of just hugely powerful support that you're going to find down here. You're probably going to end up seeing Bitcoin drop down to 21.5. One of our principles of trading is that we like to place our trade exits right before the level that we're predicting the market will go to, because there is always a chance that Bitcoin won't go quite as far as you think it will. For example, during this rally, we were expecting that Bitcoin would go to 32,935. You probably heard that number a billion times out of my mouth. If you had entered the trade, which I recommended back over here, when I told you guys Bitcoin was probably going to 32,935, but you put your exit at 32,935, you never would have had that exit filled. Instead, the principle of trading that you would want to include here, because I basically gave you guys a trade idea to set up a trade, and I'll just give you kind of just a little bare bones example here. I basically gave you a trade something like this. If you were to follow this, you would want to make sure that that you didn't put your exit right at 32,935, because there's always a chance that Bitcoin's not going to go there, right? So when we broke above, say, I don't know, 18.5, and you entered this trade, you probably want to put your exit somewhere around 30, not 32,935. And in a similar vein, when we're looking at this short trade, you don't want to just wait for the market to go all the way down to 21.5, because possibly it won't go all the way down to 21.5. If that's the support, Bitcoin can sometimes just kind of hover over the support. And if it does that, then you're going to be up a creek without a paddle, because you won't have gotten your short exited, and then you'll be stuck with a trade that has no chance of ever really becoming profitable, because you've already had the movement that you were trying to trade. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and read some chat. We've got another donation from Rick. Thank you so much, Rick. That's $100 you've donated in just the last couple of days. Thank you so very much for that. We've also got a member chat, so let's go ahead and read those chats and then read some more comments. I really appreciate all of you guys tuning in. We're going to move into a period of Q&A now. I'd love to interact with you guys and hear your heart on things. Make sure if you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and sign up for Club DeFi's Principles of Technical Analysis, because over there, we're going to teach you everything that you need to know about technical analysis so that you can hit the ground running, profiting in these markets. Jeremy Shorter, who's been a member for 19 months, and a Jedi Padawan, said, "Hi, bro, Jeb. My prayers continue with you. Would you be willing to give me your thoughts on Tranchess? I really like it, but want another take." I'd have to look into it. It's not a cryptocurrency that I have followed too closely. It looks like it has something to do with chess. I'm interested, but I would have to look into that. I don't keep up with every little altcoin. That's not my forte. All right. Let's go ahead and read, let's see, where is my tab? Let's go ahead and read here Rick's chat as well. Donated $50. Thank you so much, Rick. Said Proverbs 3:7, do not be wise in your own eyes, fear the Lord and depart from evil. Absolutely. It also says in Proverbs, was it 9, verse 7, somewhere? Not 7, 9:7 is do not rebuke a scorner, but somewhere in the beginning of Proverbs, it says 9. I think it's Proverbs 9. The beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. So absolutely love to see it, Rick4962. Really appreciate it. And I want you guys to know something also. I am just the messenger. I am just the spokesperson. I am just the translator, because most and pretty much all of the financial principles that I teach you guys are actually just biblical, that are, and I'm just translating them into modern English and culture and American culture. Right? I'm explaining them through the lens of technical analysis. I'm explaining them through the lens of cryptocurrency. I'm explaining them through the lens of personal finance. I'm explaining them through the lens of our own culture. So I really appreciate all of you guys tuning in, but I want you to know that I'm not the creator of any of the principles that I'm teaching you. I have learned them from other people, and I want to pass them on. RC Moore has donated $2, said ADA will bounce, still north of $1 in bull market, question mark. I think that really goes... I think it really, let's see. It really all depends on the adoption that Cardano was able to get in light of it being not that has been decided upon as being a security, but that has been labeled a security. I think that really comes down to whether or not it is going to be decided by the government that it is a security. The SEC came out and said, Cardano is a security. Whether or not that sticks is going to have a lot to do with whether or not Cardano is able to succeed. So that's something to consider. Will it bounce? Yes, I think it definitely will bounce, because remember, the market for Cardano is not just in the cryptocurrency, is not just in America. It's also all over the world. So this does definitely shake things up technically, but I do think it'll bounce. I do think that Cardano has even more proving of itself that it needs to do from this point on, though. So thank you for the donation, RC Moore, and that was a great question. All right, let's see. I don't fear God, I aim to please God. Verhafti Flufen, first and foremost, you have an awesome name. Second of all, if you're a Christian, I would definitely encourage you to consider the verse. Where is it? I believe it is. I thought it was in the beginning of Proverbs 9. Anyway, the verse that the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. Not fear as in, oh, I'm so terrified, but as in, I don't want to displease. I aim to please God. If you aim to please God, then you should be afraid of displeasing God, right? So you're saying the same thing. If you aim to please God, I aim to please God. I am afraid of not pleasing God, right? I want to please Him. And so that's where that beginning of the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord comes in, is that if you have the fear of the Lord, you will be wise because you will be afraid of not doing what God tells you to do. And if you're doing what God instructs you to do, that is wise. Why? Because He's the author of wisdom. All right. Jeb, you're my youth group pastor. Oh my goodness. Maybe GG gave us another chance to load up alts. Very possible. GG is trying to say GG to the cryptocurrency market, and we're saying nope. We're going to fight. All right. Wise people used to say stay in school. Now they say stay away from school. Yeah, it really depends on what the school is teaching for sure, isn't it? Little Trucker Kennel Miniature Pinschers. That's a really cool name. Donate $5. Its most basic level cryptocurrency is nothing more than information and should be covered under the First Amendment. That is a very good point. That is a very, very good point. There's a lot of things that ought to be covered under amendments that are not covered under amendments. I'm going to run a poll. What do you do for a living? I'm going to run a poll. What do you do for a living? Are you a business owner? Are you an employee? Are you self-employed? Or are you something else? I'd love to hear what kind of profession you guys have. I want to learn more about your backgrounds. And I think that you guys are very entrepreneurially minded. And I think there's a lot of content that we can do to help you guys with the entrepreneurial side of things and with the financial side of things. I think ultimately there's a lot of financial misinformation out there. And I think there's a lot of financial ignorance out there. And that's something that we want to be able to combat. All right. I like how you mix the word with crypto. Well, thank you, Max PP. I think it needs to happen. I'm employed mainly and have a small side business as well. Boom. Freedom Advocate said sales. There you go. All right. Cool. I'm a homeless street performer. Cool. That's all. I tell you what, some people out there, they've got skill. They've got skills that pay them bills, as they say. Good deal. All right, guys. Yes, please smash the likes. The Federal Reserve took my house. Only the East can save us now. We need a fair new world. Yeah, I am sorry. I am the Federal Reserve. I'm very sorry to hear that. Pubo Kia Zim. I'd encourage you to go to I'd encourage you to go to your closest church. There's a fellow that's been in rough shape financially at our church, and one of the members of our church, actually my father-in-law, took him in, and I was able to minister to him, and our pastor's been able to minister to him, and his mother's able to, and everybody's just kind of come together around this guy, and it's really been beautiful watching his change. He actually just got baptized on Sunday. And it was really encouraging to watch what happened because he had been struggling with this for a long time. But the church came together and offered him everything, but said, "Hey, look, you got to work, you got to do it yourself. There's got to be a spiritual change here too. We can't just give handout. We got to help you to grow. We got to give you the lesson of how to fish, not just give you fish because that's not going to help you at all." And so he finally came to the Lord Jesus 2 Sundays ago. Got baptized last Sunday. And now he's doing a lot better. He's got the church there to support him, and he's walking down the right path. So he's got both components. He's walking with Jesus now because I believe he got saved. I believe he was born again, and got baptized. And every time you talk to him, he says, "Look, it's the Lord God's will. It's His will for my life. If He says, that's what I'm going to do." And it's been so encouraging to watch the change in him. I think he's going to be getting a job, and the church is there to support him in his journey. They're not doing it for him. He's doing it himself and through surrendering to the Lord. And it's just very encouraging to see what's happening there. So I would encourage you to go and see the local church and see if they can help you at all. Because if you are willing to follow the Lord, and if you're willing to realize that financial trouble And most all troubles in our lives come from something inside of us. It is a spiritual immaturity somewhere in us. Now, don't get me wrong, you can get hit by a tsunami. I was watching this really terrifying documentary last night called The Days, and it's about the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster on Netflix. And this is like a really scary documentary, kind of dramatic documentary. And, you know, those guys had prepared all kinds of, well, you see that they're saying like, oh, this, that, you know, they're on point. They know what they're doing. It's a well-run facility, but they got smacked by a tsunami and an earthquake. Like, sometimes you can't help that cataclysm is going to come against you. You know, Job didn't decide one day, oh, I'm just going to have all my livestock die. I'm going to lose all my family. You know, he didn't decide to have those troubles come on him. So I'm not saying that everything that happens to us that's bad is our own fault. But what I am saying is that many of the troubles in our lives come from something in our own heart. Was it Proverbs 4 or somewhere? I'm memorizing this one. Out of the heart flow all issues of life. So when you realize that, and when you realize that there's something spiritual, there's a spiritual element to your finances, there's a spiritual element to your whole life, and when you realize that there's a lack of discipline here, there's a lack of faith here, there's a lack of peace here because I'm looking too much into the future and being anxious. I'm looking too much into the past and being depressed. I am not living in the moment. I'm not being disciplined. I'm not keeping my word. I'm not being committed. I'm not giving my best effort. I'm not, whatever it is, there's a spiritual element to why you, and not just you, Pooh, but everyone here, myself, are not where we ought to be. And that's not to say we're not going to get hit by attacks. We're not the only human that lives on this planet, and we're certainly not the only, you know, there's certainly attacks that will come. But what I do want you to know is that most all problems in our life, in fact, I would argue every single one of them, because something could be an attack, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a problem for you, come from a lack of spiritual maturity in our own heart. And that's something I've been wrestling a lot with. Like, how many times do I walk around resentful? How many times do I walk around bitter? How many times do I walk around not being disciplined, which is just another form of not keeping your commitment, which is another form of not having integrity? How many times do I do that? And I think, golly, I do. Yeah, I do that. You know, if I want financial sovereignty, I've got to get this guy right. I got to stop trying to get everybody else right. I got to get this dude right. There's something wrong in my heart. You know, it talks about in Romans 7. There, basically, even if you're not a believer, read this, and I promise you'll relate to this. Second half of Romans 7, Paul's talking about, you know, I know what is good, and I want to do what is good because I recognize what is good for the most part, but there's something in me that wars in my members that stops me from doing what is good. And there's this war in me. What shall I say then? Well, then we must be freed by Christ. And so that's where we have to get ourselves right. We have to figure out how to walk in the Spirit and trust in God and get our spirit correct. Learn to be disciplined, learn to be committed, learn to have integrity, learn to keep our word, learn to wake up early, learn to spend time with the Lord in the morning, learn to take care of our health. Whatever it is, we have to get this spirit, this secondarily body and mind right, and then financial sovereignty will come from that. You know why? Because financial sovereignty does not mean being rich. Financial sovereignty means being in control. And you can be, and hear me here, this is going to rock your world, and this is completely contrary to what most people will teach you. You can be financially sovereign flat broke. Because if you are in the will of God, if you are doing what you were called to do in your life, and you're walking in an upright manner, and the money that you do have, you are managing correctly, and you are being committed, and you are being disciplined, and you are keeping your word, and you are having integrity, and you are having love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against these things there is no law. If you're doing what you are called to do by the creator of heaven and earth, the most perfect person, the only perfect person that ever lived, if you're doing that, you will have peace. If you are not, no amount of money will ever give you peace. I promise you guys, I've made millions of dollars in my career, and not one of those dollars has ever given me an ounce of peace. Even though every day I thought I was trying to achieve financial peace by making more money, I thought that would bring me peace. I understand that you need enough money to live and pay your bills, and if you don't do that, and if you're not providing for your household, you know what the Bible says. But my point is, to find financial sovereignty, there's all kinds of things I can teach you, but first and foremost, it's a spiritual matter. You've got to get yourself right. You've got to be able to find peace because you're doing what you were called to do. And you can do that on the streets, or you can do that with a $100 billion company. But it starts here, and no amount of money will change that. That is a process that you absolutely have to get right. All right. We have one more super chat. Profit Bear donated $7.77. I literally am a messenger. I deliver, and I'm all in $Jesus. First crypto church. God is moving in mysterious ways. I've sold all my bags for Jesus. Yeah, I don't know anything about that. That cryptocurrency. I definitely love Jesus. I don't know about that cryptocurrency though. Those who don't work don't eat. That's right. That's right. All right. Exactly. Lead by example, not by giving advice. That's right. Yeah. And that's what I want to do. I want to make sure that I am right, because if I'm going to give you guys advice, and I will give you advice on financial sovereignty, because it's not me giving it. I'm just the messenger. I'm just the translator, right? I'm just referring back to the word and translating it into a world that might not want to hear it, hear that it's coming from God because they don't believe in God, but they'll hear it from this random 22-year-old that, you know, has a YouTube channel and everything. You'll hear it from me. So I want to tell you, because you're willing to listen to it from my mouth, and help you guys to understand that. All right, guys, really appreciate all of you tuning in. It has hit that time, 10:45, and we're going to go ahead and wrap it out. Really appreciate all of you tuning in. I'm really excited because I'm going through this kind of journey in my own life, trying to, how shall I say, trying to synthesize the message that I want to bring to the world. And as I continue to understand exactly what it is that I'm supposed to be sharing with you guys, it clicks, and I start realizing, wow, wait a minute. If I want to teach these people about being disciplined, man, I've got to be a perfect example of discipline. Man, if I want to teach these people about being committed and on time, I need to be a perfect example of that. If I want to teach these people about being entrepreneurs in their own life, whether they're flat broke and living on the streets or whether they got a $100 billion business, then I need to be an example of that. If I'm going to teach people about being ordered and disciplined, then I dang well better make sure that I put the dishes away before the night ends. I'd better make sure that if I'm going to teach you guys to be in shape, because it's part of having financial sovereignty, then I better be hitting the gym, right? And that's what we've been doing. If I'm going to teach you guys that you need to get up early, then I'd better be doing that. So I just want you guys to know what's going on behind the scenes. I am on this crusade in my own life, looking at myself, because the Lord tells me to get the log out of my eye before I get the speck out of your eye, right? And I want to help you get the speck out of that eye in yours, because you've got plenty. Don't get me wrong. You know it. You know it. You can lie. You're not going to. I believe you're going to be honest. You know you got a speck in your eye somewhere. You know you're lacking discipline here. You know you're not taking care of your body there. You know you're not getting up early enough there. You know it. But I know it too. And so I'm working to get myself right. And as I do, I'm going to be more open to teaching you guys about the fullness of what it takes to be financially sovereign. And while that doesn't involve reading charts, it goes so much deeper. It goes so much deeper. And I'm very excited to share that with you. Great stream. I'm excited. I'm really excited about where the next several years are going, guys. Next 10 years are going to be the best 10 years of my life. I really appreciate all of you. I don't even want to go. I just want to keep talking, but I am going to wrap it out for the sake of being on time. I do want to, before I go, guys, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that post notification bell if you have not already. Make sure to sign up for Lux Algo and Club DeFi's Principles of Technical Analysis. Those are both great products that are going to help you in your technical analysis and also in your education. Really appreciate all of you for tuning in. I am going to go. Before I do, I first just want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching, as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.
Oh, I got a real good feeling.